Welcome back to Bible Bites. I'm Gabe Hernandez, and today we're going to start with the book of John, chapter 1. Now, if you're new to the Bible and you don't have any experience with how the book is laid out, you may have heard this is broken down into the first half, which is the Old Testament, and the second half, which is the New Testament. The difference between the two is the birth of Christ and Jesus' ascension to eventually to his crucifixion, death, and resurrection. So the Old Testament is all this old stuff like Garden of Eden, Moses uh, parting the Red Sea, the flood, and Noah. That's all the Old Testament. New Testament starts with the birth of Jesus and moves on forward. The first four books, and that's how they're named, each one of the names are books. The first four books of the Bible of the New Testament are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're all the same story told from a different point of view and addressing the life of Jesus from a different perspective. So they're all about the life of Jesus from the time he's born to the time he's crucified, died, resurrected, and ascended into heaven, but just taken from different angles, told from a different narrator's point of view. We're going to start with the book of John, even though it's the fourth in that series, because it's more focused on who Jesus is as the adult when he's really starting his ministry at the age of 30 and through on to the age of 33 when he's eventually crucified. So John, they're all about Jesus, but this one is the one that really kind of starts when his ministry really begins at that start line and moves forward. So reading through it, where we pick up is we get a preamble or a little preface that says essentially that Jesus was with God since the very beginning of all of existence. He's referred to as the Word and also as the light of creation. And then when we come down to the physical plane, our world, we start with John the Baptist, who was sent as a herald, if you will, somebody who was meant to announce Jesus is coming. He's here. He's ready to start acting. He's ready. He's always been acting since he was born, but he's ready to start his ministry at this moment. And John is baptizing people. He's trying to get them prepared. He's dousing them with with the water of rebirth. And then he sees Jesus in the crowd. And he says, I know it's Jesus because a dove came down from heaven and landed on him. And I know and I can feel his spiritual presence, his spiritual power. And I know that's the man. That's the guy that's going to do it. And Jesus approaches him and says, are we getting things ready? Are we getting prepared? Because Jesus already knew who John the Baptist was. He knew what it was all about. And he gives him the little side wing saying, yeah, it's time to go. Now, the people surrounding John the Baptist who were there getting baptized or just witnessing the baptisms taking place, they all say, John the Baptist, who are you? Aren't you the Messiah? Aren't you the one that was prophesied in the Old Testament as the one who's going to come save everybody's soul? He's like, no. I'm just the guy who's announcing it. I'm here paving the way. Some people believe him. Some people don't. Some people think he's just an old kook that's just living out in the woods. Because remember, at this time, well, maybe you don't remember if you're new to the Bible, but at this time, John the Baptist was just sort of a hermit living out by the river, near Bethany by the River Jordan, and he was just sort of living out there by himself. He's wearing furs from animals. He was just subsisting on bugs and honey. So he was just kind of like an old kook to some people. But others who were believers, they came to him and they said, please baptize me. Please get me ready for that day when Christ comes. And so it's very important that on two levels, you're establishing that Jesus is not only just the Messiah, but he was there with God and part of God and a representation of God since the beginning of all existence. He's referred to in the very beginning as the Word and as the light of creation. And then when he comes to earth in physical form, and the book of John picks up with him as an adult, where the prior books of the first four, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, start when he's younger or even at birth or even before birth. This really picks up with his ministry and basically announcing himself on the public stage, saying, we're ready to go. I'm here. I've done all the prep work I can. It's time to start spreading the word of salvation and trying to save people's lives and save their souls and get them ready to reestablish their relationship with God. And so the first part, after we have that little preamble that establishes Jesus's presence as the Word and being part of God and with God since the very beginning, now in the human form, he's not declaring himself as the Messiah. He's allowing the people around him to do it. The people who are believers that were there with John the Baptist. John the Baptist is declaring it. Hey, that's the guy. That's the one you've all been waiting for. And then as we move into the latter part of the book, or that chapter, I should say, That's when Jesus starts picking up his apostles, the 12 that eventually will make up his tight circle, his inner circle of apostles that will follow him and help him do his work and help him accomplish his mission for the 3 years that he has on the planet, from the start of his mission to the end of his mission. And so, why is this important? It's important because it does a couple things. Number one, at least for me anyway, I encourage you to read it yourself, and that's what this whole channel is about, and that's what doing this Bible study is about, is encouraging you to read it and understand that it's not just a book of rules and regulations and what God is about. It's about telling the stories of the people who were there at the time and where they fell down, where they accomplished stuff, and more importantly, what it all is all leading up to this is Jesus and his ministry. And so from this particular book, we understand that we know what Jesus is about. The people around him either rejected him outright, in some cases even in a nasty way, but also there were believers who knew he was coming and they recognized him almost on the spot. And so then that's where the ministry starts to pick up, is because now he's picking up the believers, the people who were waiting for the Messiah to come. And now that the people around him recognized him for who he was as the Messiah, everything starts to pick up steam. It's a message of, what's a startup message? It's a message of we're getting the band together, right? Not all the apostles are gathered by the time you end John chapter 1, but they start picking up. He picks up the people that will eventually be known as Paul, picks up Nathaniel. He picks up a lot of believers who recognize him for who he is and what he's meant, what he represents. And so now we're getting steam picked up very quickly. We're getting the steam picked up, and we're getting ready for Jesus to do his great works, to heal, to save, to reestablish and fix what the original fall of man from the Garden of Eden broke. And that's the big deal of the New Testament. That's a lot of the stuff I pick up. I try to look at it from the sort of the intellectual and academic point of view. Now, and then we now have to think about how do you apply it to who we are and what we're all about. If for me anyway, and you may feel differently when you read it, you may pick up something different out of it. But what I pick up is Jesus was a real person. And he didn't just say, I'm the Messiah. The people called him out for being the Messiah because they knew who he was. They could feel it. They could see it. The signs were all there. And then the preamble also establishes that he wasn't just some new creation that God put on this earth. He was there since the beginning. So this day was planned for a really, really long time, since the beginning of everything. And that, in many ways, establishes a sense of hope, because it makes it clear that Jesus didn't just pop up because, let's just do this today. This was a plan that was in the works for eons upon eons. And it was strong enough that people could pick him out of a crowd without too much trouble. So that makes him real. That makes him tangible. It makes him a person just like you and me, but with a little bit of extra, knowing who he is and who he represents, which is the physical manifestation of God. So I want you to read John chapter 1. Read it along with me. On the screen, I've put up a copy of, you go to Bible Gateway, you can look it up there. If you want a physical Bible, there are umpteen number of resources to get it. And if you don't know where to get it, email us at BibleGateway66@gmail.com, and we'll find a resource for you and we'll help you out. So I hope this was a good start to what will be a very long, fruitful spiritual growth relationship. Next, we're going to be covering, obviously, John chapter 2. That'll be coming up hopefully this Thursday, if we don't run into schedule problems. And leave a comment down below. Did you read John chapter 1, and what did you think of it? I want to know what you thought and what you learned from it, if anything. And let's share, let's talk about it, and let's see where this goes. So I'm Gabe Hernandez for Bible Bites. Thank you very much for joining. God bless, and have a great day.